What's up YouTube? Hello knife people. I'm Joe. You are watching Ink and Iron, and today we are going to talk about the reasons you might want to use a cheap steel in your everyday carry knife. And just for fun, cracking open a beer today. It is Sunday, so I'm just taking it easy. This is a Denver Pale Ale from Great Divide Brewing Company. My very first reason for you considering using a cheap steel as an everyday carry steel is if you're going to use a blade as though it is disposable. Now, what I mean by this is maybe for you blades are disposable. You're using a razor blade, a utility razor every day, cutting miles of cardboard or tape and packaging and ratchet straps and all kinds of stuff. I've worked in warehouse environment. You're cutting all kinds of crazy stuff all day long. You don't want something that's like a $100, $200, $300 knife as your everyday carry, because you're just going to abuse the thing. So if you're going to treat a knife as disposable, go with a cheap steel. Reason number 2, the cost. The cost of a knife is important. I've been collecting knives for the last 12 years or so, and cost has generally been a factor for me in my knife buying decisions. I've been broke a long time. In the last year or so, I've finally stopped being completely broke, so that's been nice. Quality of gear I've been looking at has increased, so I'm happy for that. But I definitely remember the times when it was like, paycheck to paycheck, I gotta get a ton of work done with a knife. What am I bringing? You can get plenty of good knife for not too much money. Here's an example: Kershaw CQC 7K. If you saw my chemical resistant EDC video, then you already know about this knife. I have abused it. You can see the rust in there. But for under 40 bucks, I believe this is a great knife. One hand open, frame lock. I'm not going to call it chemical resistant because you can see this crazy patina that I have on there. But this knife definitely served the purpose and saved all my other knife collection from having to go to the chemical factory. So, cost. Keep it in mind. If you can't afford a super expensive knife, don't. There are good knife designs at every price point, and price point tends to correspond with whether or not you're getting a super steel. Buck, for instance, uses a lot of 420HC, but that Paul Boss heat treat, it's amazing. It makes this perform like S30V. So, don't overspend on a knife. Stick to your budget. You'll be just fine. Trust me. Number 3, beginners. If you are buying a knife for the first time, or if you're buying a knife for someone else as a gift, don't seek out the craziest steel that you can find. Don't search out, I've heard CTS XHP is a really good steel and yada yada yada. Chill. You need to chill. A softer steel is actually going to be better for a beginner. For one, if you end up abusing the knife, as I have abused many knives, you stand to do damage to the edge. So, for instance, I have this. This is Maximet on a Manix 2. I'm trying to show you the tip damage if I can. So right now I'm cutting in a close-up shot of the tip of this Manix 2 folding knife. What happened to this was I jabbed a can of duster. It was empty. I was just relieving the very last bit of pressure before putting it in the recycle bin. Poked into it, twisted slightly as I came out, and took little chips out of the blade. So I didn't know that was going to happen because I had actually thrust this into aluminum several times. I just hadn't twisted on the way out. So yeah, I definitely chipped at the edge, and this is a super expensive steel, but this is also like the best edge retention you could hope for besides like Rex 45, Rex 121, or a tungsten carbide knife, which isn't even a steel at that point. Anyway, if you have a cheaper steel, it's probably going to deform the edge without breaking it, and that's going to be easier to correct. You may be able to hone the edge back into shape, or with a very simple sharpening system, restore the edge. That's huge for someone who's first getting into knives and doesn't know what not to do. So, if you're a beginner, consider a cheaper steel. It's going to work out better for you, and you'll be incentivized to learn sharpening should you accidentally abuse a knife, because you don't know everything that you're doing. That's fine. I still don't. And I appreciate my cheap steels just as much as my expensive ones. Number 4, if you're going to modify a knife, don't overpay. You guys know me. You know that I shop second sale. I like deals. I got a deal on this knife. This is the Native 5 Salt from Spyderco. This is a factory seconds. Hopefully you can see this little glint right here. That is the mark of a factory seconds from Spyderco. So there is no warranty on this blade, and it has a corresponding price drop when you go to the factory for their second sale. This also had no clip. Originally, all yellow handle, no clip. That's not a knife that most people are looking for, but I saw it. I was getting a discount because it was a seconds and because it had no clip. There were ones with clips that were more expensive than this one. And I thought, well, I don't like the clip it comes with, so I'll probably get it a new one anyway on the aftermarket. And I'd really like to dye those handles. So, yeah, I went with this one, modified the handles, so now I have a sick fade using RIT dye. You can check out my other videos and see the full process to do this. But yeah, I'm super glad I didn't overpay, because the bottle of RIT dye was like $4, clip was like 25. So I think I paid about 50, put about 30 bucks worth of mods into it. 80 bucks for a custom Spyderco Native 5 Salt. I'm stoked. I love this thing. Now, I was talking about cheap steels. Obviously, this isn't a cheap steel, but let me cut in just a freeze frame from anywhere of the Honey Badger, which is a knife that is currently available on Amazon for like 30 bucks and is like 3.5 inches. You can get a smaller version, which I think is around 3 inches. And they are wonderfully modifiable. I'm not sure the steel on there. I'll put it down here once I research it. But the handles can be dyed. You can take that cheap knife steel and acid wash it and then stone wash it. You could, carve your name into it. You could sculpt that steel and no one would care. It would still be a sick knife, and you didn't pay that much up front, which is important if you're going to be putting work and resources into making it cooler later on. If you're a heavy DIY modifier type person, don't overpay for your starting materials. That's all I'm saying. It's coming from a guy who does it too. My 5th and final point is that the price of a knife does not correspond to how much you are going to enjoy it. It's as simple as that. This is the Spyderco Capara. Now, I got this as a seconds, and I'm glad I did, because had I bought this at full factory price, I don't think I would like it as much. And that might seem strange, because you're looking at it and you're going, oh yeah, sick like carbon fiber scales, S30V blade, really cool profile, got a compression lock on the back. But in the hand, this knife's a bit weird. It's a little bit skinny right here, like right where my fingers need to be to choke up. And if I ever had to thrust this into something, I would be super paranoid that my hand would slide forward into the blade. If you don't know what you're looking for in a knife, don't overpay. Don't go with the hype. Try to find something that's, again, within your budget and that looks cool to you. If it looks cool and you know generally what you're about, you're like, oh, I like skinny blades, or I like big chunky blades, or I like huge blade, I like cold steel. Well, good news, cold steel, this is AUS 10, I think, which makes sense because it's a 5.5 inch knife. So just invest in what you think you're going to enjoy, and if you're not enjoying it, move on. There's a huge community looking for knives that are secondhand, and those people would be happy to take a knife off your hands. That is my argument for using a cheap steel. It's going to do the job. If you are using it as though it's disposable, get a cheap steel. If you're cost conscious, you think I'd rather have 5 knives under 50 bucks than one $250 knife, I totally get that. I've been there too. Do it. Be cost conscious and buy a cheaper steel. 3, if you are a beginner knife collector and or knife sharpener, choose a cheap steel. Don't break the bank. Figure out what you like, figure out how to maintain your tools, and then grow with the hobby as you grow as a person. 4th thing, if you are going to modify or DIY a bunch of stuff on the knife, I would say go with a cheaper steel, or at least search the secondary market. I'd probably go with a cheap steel, because if you beat it up and screw it up, it's not going to matter that much. You can probably replace it pretty easily. And then number 5, the price of a steel does not equate to how much enjoyment you are going to get out of a knife. My first knife was a complete mystery steel from China. It was my Gerber Profile 2. And I loved and abused that thing for years. So you're going to be all right. Thanks for sitting down and discussing this topic with me today. I've been Joe. You've been watching Ink&Iron. I do have a Patreon if you feel like supporting, but there is no pressure. Really appreciate a like, comments if you got them, and subscribe if you want more content like this. All right. Thanks a lot. I'll catch you on my next video.